second, guys. We're just getting it set up. Trying to make sure I get everybody invites. Did you get the invite? Yep, IAmLenFlow. I just emailed you an invite. All right. Let me see here. Everything looks right. I'll just make it public. Forget it. It ain't that serious. We live. Cool. So the video is live now. We all the way live, huh? All right, guys. What's good, man? It's your boy DJ brimLo. We gonna be on here, but unfortunately on another call. Okay, cool. Len's with me. He's on the call. It's all good. All right, guys, let's get into it. So, here's my goal for the day. All right, the beat we're gonna be working on is a beat from my homie IAmLenFlow, super dope producer, longtime friend from Mississippi, you know, out in the hometown, like so I'm talking before I moved to Texas, longtime friend, and we're working on. We just finished up one of his albums, the Donut Holes beat tape, super dope. Put that in rotation on your Spotify, on your Apple Music, all the above. Title, but Google Play. But now we're working on the next project, The Pursuit of Me. Right now, it's potentially the name's what we're looking at. And what I want to work on today is kind of like we're going to be working at cleaning up his Mashine sessions. I work in Mashine a lot, and you know I'm working on I got his Mashine session, and I was just telling him, you know, there's different options you can do in Mashine just to kind of make your workflow, what I feel I would say, a little easier, a little like when I'm working on something, I like to look at it and know exactly what I'm looking at. And I think there's a more efficient way to use it than what he does. That doesn't make him wrong, doesn't make him right. I'm just going to say more efficient. So that's my goal today. I want to look at some more efficient workflow. So decided we, you know, do it live on YouTube and for everybody to share. All that good noise, all that good jazz, you know what I'm saying? Let's get into it. So I'm going to play the beat from the beginning first, and we're just going to start with that. Then we're going to tear it apart and put the session together. Right now, where we're starting now, we're not so much looking to make a new beat. We're talking about how we can be a little more efficient with our workspace. that's a it's a good feel for the beat. You can see the session here. Uh, Now, when I look at this, first of all, I see this is like our little intro right here. We're at 61 BPM, so we got an 8-bar intro. It does 4 with the drums, the next 4 no drums. Then this seems to be our verse, all these different scenes. Now, once again, this is about being efficient. I don't like having all these different scenes that just do the same thing. This is a 16-bar verse, and we use 4 scenes to make the 16-bar. I would rather, I try to keep my scenes per section. Okay, so I have a scene that's committed to either if all the verses are the same, then that scene is committed to verses. Or if there's a different one, then I would have a scene for verse 1 and a scene for verse 2. Because I mean, you don't. There's obviously Maschine. It adds a lot of options to keep working. But I've been able to do a lot of my songs with just 7 scenes. Sometimes 8 maybe, but it doesn't take all that. Another thing I see here is in group A, 1A, he's only used 1 sound, which is, it looks like it's a sample. In group C1, he used 1 sound, it's a sample. In group D1, same thing, he used 1 sound, it's a sample. I think we can be a little more efficient with that. One of the benefits of being more efficient that I will say is like me right now when I'm making beats, I'm typically doing 2 different versions of the beat. I'm doing the version that's for a song, whether the song is for me or it's going in the beat store, and then I'm doing a version for beat tapes. So there's the beat tape version that it's like it's a more instrumental style version. So it may not have 8s and 16s. It may have 8s and 24s or 32s. You know what I'm saying? So that's that. Shout out to LenFlow in the stream with us. Shout out to DreamLifeBeats in the stream with us. And those are the homies. So anywho, so that's kind of how I look at that. That's kind of my thought process on that. Like, if I can keep this thing streamed down and simple, then that makes it easier for me to kind of keep my workflow clean. You know what I'm saying? Which that's pretty much my focus. I want to keep the workflow clean. So I'm looking at this. Let me check the group. Let me look at this from the group view. Okay, he does have perform effects on this group. That's not a bad thing. I see that it's there. All right. So we're gonna cover 2 different things with that. So let's see. There. Yeah, so we can put. So how I like to work, I like to have all the drums. So let me do a save as. I'm gonna change the name of this just so I don't mess it up for him. I want to have mine separate. What's today's date? 24th. So we're gonna go 0524. This beat is actually gonna be on a song that DreamLifeBeats is on called Hold On Me. So that's kind of dope. So we're gonna call it Hold On Me. I'll put the LF there so I know it's a LenFlow beat. That works. Boom, save. So when you're trying to condense the session, the first thing you need to know is how many different patterns and stuff I have. So I want to get all the samples in one group. That's my goal. So I need to see. Let's see. There's that one. Then there's 2. And I try to name everything when I work as well. I didn't even realize I was still on the phone. Hello? All right, we good. So, let's see. Hook drums. It says hook drums, but it uses the same drums in the verse, which is fine. So, all right, so scene 1 is our intro, right? And it's an 8-bar intro. That's fine. So first thing I'm going to do is rename scene 1 to intro. Sometimes I'll just say N for short. But I want to make sure we all stay on the same page, so I'm going to say intro. Boom. There's scene 1, intro. It needs to be 8 bars. So what I'm going to do, every time I see SFX sample, it is normally, looks like it's 8 bars. Over here, it's 12. We'll deal with that later, but it's 8 right here. So what I'm going to do is on my machine, I'm going to press pattern. I have a Mark II. I'm going to press pattern on machine. And then on the left screen, the third button, I'm going to hit double. It's 8 bars because it's the same thing repeating, right? So now I can delete this scene. Let's get that out the way. So now we have our 8-bar intro. Boom, just like that. Got it all condensed down into one. I like that. It's one scene. It's one, just all one. Hook drums, is it 8 bars everywhere I see it? No, sometimes it's 4 right here. This, we can remove that. Because from how I'm looking, it looks like he set up 8s and 16s. That's what we got, guys. We got 8s and 16s. Let's remove this. And let's remove this. So we need 8-bar intro, 16-bar verse, 8-bar hook, 16-bar verse. I'm pretty sure Dub did 16s. I'll have to double check. Let's assume right now that he did 16s. He's actually on stream, so he may comment in a minute to let me know if he did 16s or 12s. But we're just going to assume right now that he did 16s. So what we're going to do, we're going to duplicate this pattern that says hook drums, right? I'm going to make this same, and I'm going to tell you why, because remember the drums only played for the first part, and then they didn't play in the second part. The drums played for the first 4 bars, and they stopped. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here on hook drums, and I'm on my machine. I press pattern. Left screen, 4th button is duplicate. I'm going to duplicate it. Boom. Now it's called pattern 3. And I'm going to put intro drums. Boom. That's a little long, so I probably would say in drums, but same difference, right? I'm going to come over here. I'm going to make the pattern longer by doubling. I doubled it. Let's listen to it. Okay, so then this section here where the drums weren't, we're going to take that out. We'll leave the cymbal crash. Alright, so there's our intro drums, just like that. It starts with the hi-hat, so this is the beginning of the song. We go. Okay, what we got here? We got this lo-fi bit reduction. That's cool. Crushing it down to 8-bit. That's dope. It's real kind of ear piercing though, so we just need a filter behind it. Low pass. Boom. Simple fix, just like that. Let's just balance it out just a touch. Nothing, we're not doing crazy mixing. We just want to balance it out a little bit. We'll dig deeper off into this, but I actually organize my drums a certain way just so that I kind of try to keep certain sounds together so that when I'm working, I can work fast. Like my kick drums, my hi-hats, all those type of sounds, I usually keep them close beside each other. I keep the kicks together, snares together, hi-hats together. That way when I want to adjust the level, I can do it really fast. So let's do that right quick, just because we want to be able to also listen. We'll get these snares together. Let's see, we got a crash cymbal. That's a cowbell. That's cool. Hi-hat. So let me see, where's that crash at? This isn't the order I personally normally put them in, but that's what we're going to do for this today. Where's the crash? I just had it. So boom. Ooh, that was loud. Why is it so loud? My bad, guys. So boom, there's a little fix just like that. Okay, so yeah, Dub just checked in. He told me he did 16s. That's perfect. All right, so cool. Yeah, we're doing 16. So we just did the intro. We just balanced it out a little bit. Just pull back some of the top end on some of this stuff. Like here, I'll go low pass filter, and it don't have to be nothing crazy. Just right around there. That's good enough. So yeah, we want to feel the beat bump a little bit. Just have a good, comfortable listening experience. So here we are. We just have condensed this down. Drums. This group is our drums, and so let's move that to the top. This group is our sample. So that's already named drums. I'm just gonna name this group samples. All right. And basically we'll do all the samples in one group, all the drums in another group. All right, so let's start here. We have 4 scenes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 different scenes that are making up one 16-bar verse. So let's just do, since all this pattern, this drum pattern is going to play throughout all of the, excuse me. Since this one pattern is going to play for 16 bars, let's remove these because I don't need them, right? And the bass has got to cut off for the last 4 bars. We'll remember that. So let's remove this pattern, remove this pattern, remove this pattern, and call this pattern verse 1. All right. Now let's take this pattern, drum, hook drums, because it's not hook drums. He used the same one for the verse as well. We're gonna hit the pattern button on the Machine Mark II. And in the left screen, we're gonna hit double twice. It's 8 bars. Now it's 16. Just like that. We got a 16-bar drum. So we got one scene that's gonna host our whole verse. Okay, that's boom, just like that. This is the verse for the sample. Like I said, we're moving this. Let me check here. What's this? Is there anything on this? This one does not have any perform effects. So we're going to take this and we're going to copy it to this one because we have all the samples, right? So, and we're going to put it on sound 2. The first one, sound 1, has a different set of effects. It's set up. we're going to come to this one. So let's drag this. Watch how we do it now. We're going to select that. You can do it on the machine. I'm doing it with the computer. Obviously, I'm going to hold Option on my computer and drag up here and drop it there. Now I need to go get the notes, right? So I'm going to do this, go here. I'm going to go to Edit. No, not Edit, my bad. I'm going to right click, copy. I'm going to come here. I need to make sure I'm on a pattern. Let me see where we at. Make a new pattern that says verse. Matter of fact, I'll make it say verse 1 to be specific. And I'm going to do right click here, put paste, and boom, just like that, we got it. But it's 4 bars, right? So we need to go on our Mark II pattern, press double twice. There's our 16-bar verse. This one right here, we don't need it. We can just remove it. All right, boom. So we got that out the way. That's good. All right, cool. So boom, got that out the way. Now we've got that. It's already slowly becoming easier to look at. Bam. Now we got a bass sample. So I imagine it's the same sample just with a low pass filter. So same thing. We're gonna copy this. We're gonna drag it up to that section. Boom. Samples. Third pad. We'll put it on the 5th one. Just separate it or whatever. And looks like it copied with the notes like I needed it. Yep. And we're going to remove this because we don't need it. And then we are going here. We need to duplicate it too. That's not going to work. But what will work if I copy this, paste, come here to bar 9, copy and paste. Remember the last 4, he didn't have the bass sample running, so we'll turn it off. Now, first thing I'm going to do is go check the mix window to check the low pass, high pass filters on them. So let's see. This is our bass sample. It does have the low pass, and this is the one for the melody. It should have a high pass filter on it actually. So let's go high pass, because if one sample is carrying the bass and the other is carrying the, you see what I'm saying? So this would be for the treble, I guess you could say, the high, however you care. I don't care how you word it. So let's listen to it. Now this one is our bass, so if you want, you could even rename it and say, I like to keep the name of the sample just in case I want to know what I sampled. So I would put a LPF in front of it. It says low pass filter. That way I know what that is. So this is low pass, right? But to me, it's not enough low end. All right, cool. You gave me a heads up on the hook. Thanks, Dub. I appreciate that. So let me see here. I'm going to bring this low pass filter down more because I feel like it's too much high end stuff coming through it. Yeah, I don't want all that coming through it. So what happens if I bring it down here, Sean? That works for me. Then we'll come over here to this one, and this one's at 3. So we'll move this one down to that same 3-ish number. All right, cool. So boom, there it is. So there's our verse. All right, so without going too crazy deep into that, that's and I'll do the whole song, but that's how I kind of keep all my samples in one group. You know, like we could keep going throughout the rest of the song, but that would be the verse, and then we do the hook, same thing. We clean this up, and then we do the. He said the hook was what do you got for me here, Dub? The hook is 8 bars and. The hook is 8 bars, force 4. I anticipated no drums. Gotcha, cool. So, like, right, let's see, boom, bam. That's currently set at 16. We would clean this up, hook drums. We would make it, that's what happened. We made this 16 bars. So I need to duplicate this hook drums. I try to keep it in order, so that would be the intro right there. We're going to rename this one to verse drums. Boom. And then when we go to hook drums over here, we can bring this down to an 8-bar pattern. And Dub said that when he put it together, he had the idea that the first 4 bars wouldn't have drums. So we're just going to select those and hit backspace. Make sure I got that right. Yep, that's right. And maybe, but I think it halfway through we'll bring the hi-hats in. And we're going to keep the crash cymbals with the kick drum. Definitely keep the crash cymbal with the kick drums. Whoa. I messed that up. How did I do that? Here we go. Needed bar 3. That's why I wanted it to start. All right, my bad, guys. Here we go. Fix that. All right, backspace that. Gonna keep the cowbell there and the kick and the crash. Yep, that's right. Boom. Great. So and there's our hook. No snare yet, though. We don't want the snare to start till the second half. And keep the cowbell because that's cool. All right, so boom, and we just cleaned up our hook. There's a sample there. Then the bass sample, same. Let's see what we got here. What's this bass sample? Let's look at it. It seems to be the same as the other one, the low pass one. Oh, that's right. We put it there already. So we can remove it. Yeah, we can remove it for now. And this that said verse looks like he starts off the second verse. I get it. So the second verse starts out with just a high pass filter, the sample. Then it brings in the drums for another 8 bars, and the last 4 bars is just the low pass sample. So I can remember that. So we'll remove this. Well, we got to make a new pattern. Well, we won't remove it for now, but we know what it is. So boom, just like there's our verse, there's our hook. I would rename, instead of scene 7, this is gonna say hook. Now that's right, hook drums, whereas it says FXX sample, let's say hook sample. Let's make it say hook sample. And boom, there we have it. So let's let it play. All right, cool. So that's, you get the idea there what we got. And I like the flow. I like what we're working thus far. Now, it's a few things I do different in the verse, like sequencer wise, which, we can tackle that. It's nothing crazy. Like, I probably wouldn't keep those crash cymbals going. The whole time, I'd have them at transition points. So maybe like bar 7, which is pushing close to the end of his first verse. Matter of fact, I probably would just shift that over, but that's not important right now. All right, so that's the sequence. You see, we clean this up. Well, I think from the intro to the first hook, we probably had, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, 7 different scenes. We've got it cleaned up down to 3, and we're just using 2 groups. Like I said, I go back. I'm gonna come back later and finish organizing this, but for the most part, we now have the beef of our song in 2 groups, which is that works good for me. It just makes it easy to look at when I work on stuff, whether I'm in Pro Tools or Maschine or anything I'm working on. I try to make it to where if somebody had to come work behind me, they can look at it and right away know where I left off or what I was doing. Like, they don't have to sift through a lot of things. I think that's a good way to work, even if you're just working by yourself all the time, because I think it kind of helps you stay organized. It just helps to really, like, okay, I got to go do something, like somebody like myself. I got to do something with the kids, whatever. Maybe you have a family, maybe you have a day job, any of that. But when you come back to something, you can easily see where you left off. That's kind of how I really like it. So now, let's imagine our full song was done, right? Obviously, in this case, it's not. Let's just pretend it was. So let's just focus on these 3 groups right here. Our intro, not group scenes. The intro, verse 1, and our hook. One thing I was talking to LenFlow about, we've been talking about a classic piece of gear, the SP404, and the different effects you can do with it. And I was like, well, yo, you can do that in Maschine too if you route your stuff that way. And so I told him I was kind of talking through it over the phone. I was like, yo, let's do it live on YouTube, so it's a big part of today's video. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. So like I said, we're going to pretend that this is done. We'll just focus on this section here, the verse 1. Popular effects that I know of, that I'm a big fan of, I should say, the 404 is 404 is, I kind of think of it like a tape warble. You know, if you've ever had an old tape cassette, as that tape gets worn out, it kind of, that effect's called tremolo in Maschine. The stutter effect, which is actually called stutter and tape stop, which it may be called tape. No, it's called scratcher in Maschine. So I want to show you how to set up your machine for routing, so that you can do that. So here we go right here. Let's look at it. These are group effects. So we'll go, I prefer to do it from this window. So group F1, let's call that tremolo. T-R-E-M. Did I spell that wrong? I feel like I did. Doesn't matter. Fix it here in a second. It's a group effect, so I need to go over here to the F1 over here. And it should be perform effects down here at the bottom. Boom, perform effects. So I'm going to click on that. Another way you could have did that, if you were in this window and you hit group, you could go internal, and then right there, perform effects is grayed out because I've already selected it, okay? Now, what I was telling Lynn, like when we worked on his beat tape, I did it so that all the effects ran through it all at once, okay? The effects, like everything was affected at once. Like you see in his beat, he has it on like just a certain group, but he was like, yo, what if I want to put it on all the groups at once? So what you're gonna do, all right, this is how it works. You need to feed the output of the group into this group. So you click here where it says master, and you want to feed it through F1. And same thing, that's the drums, and this is my sample. I want it to go through F1. Like I said, we're going to act like these groups aren't here. Ignore. Ignore. We're going to treat, and y'all can ignore this one too. So, boom, just like that, it's going to feed through. And then I'm going to come to this group, G1. I meant to look to make sure I spelled that right. Let's go back. Let's do that right now. Perform effects. It was an O. I knew it was an O. Doesn't matter. Brain's fried. I need to sleep more. Tremolo. Boom. So I'll say that I want tremolo. I'll come over here. I'll do another perform effect, internal. And I want to go performance effects. And filter's a good one. Okay. I'll do another one here. Let's name that filter. F-I-L-T-E-R. Let's do another one right here. Internal, perform effects. Another favorite. I don't use flanger a lot, but maybe you do. That's up to you. Burst echo is cool. Once again, something I don't use a lot. Resonant echo or ring. Stutter. I like the stutter a lot. So let's name this one stutter. And then tape stop is going to be my last one. Internal, perform effects. And scratcher. I call it tape stop, but it's scratcher. Now what you want to do, because you basically want to be able to work any of the effects all at once, we've take this here for output. We've taken the output and sent it to tremolo. We want the output of tremolo to then go to filter. We want the output of filter to go to stutter. We want stutter to go to scratcher. We want scratcher to go through the master. Now I'm going to hit play on our beat. And you'll see that it's playing through all of them. And what that means is that regardless of which effect I use, I just want to make sure it's always feeding our master. You can't see my master fader because my webcam is right there. But we want to always make sure it's feeding through the master, okay? So that was the point of that. Okay. So boom, just like that. Now you've got 4 effects ready to go, and it's working your whole thing. And so now you can program them on your machine, and you can just mess with it. Like what I like to do when I run it is I like to tweak the settings to see what they're doing. Once I figure out the sweet spot of what I like, then I'll try to commit it to like the recording. So like, let's mess with the tremolo first. Let's do it. So right there, just for starting, that's way too aggressive. So let's dial it back. And so just like that, we kind of have our tremolo going. So like I kind of got a setting that I liked, and then I dialed it back so it wasn't so extreme. So now I kind of have like a little tremolo going. And like this is where beat tape, obviously I don't want it to stay there. So I would like right here on this knob right here, this trim vibrato knob, I see that right here, when I get to 11%, that's about the max of where I want to go. So I would bring the knob down all the way, and then when I'm working it, I just want to make sure I never go over 11%. So let's jump into that right now. What we're going to do is record it. We're going to record the automation in Mashine for it. In order to do that, and I'm on the Mark II, so I have to go by the Mark II. On the left side, there's a button that says auto, and if you hold that button while you're tweaking, while you're twisting the knob, it records automation. I need to make a pattern for this, so I'll make a pattern. I'll make sure it is 16 bars long, just like this one is, and I'll name the pattern verse 1, and boom. Let's mess with it. Let's see what happens. And so cool that we have that. You know, just real simple. We just worked it like that, man. And got our little tremolo effect in there. Nothing crazy. Got the bravado working a little. And so, boom, there it is. Just kind of tweaking and messing with it. And then you would do the same thing if you want to run, like if you want a filter to come up at some time. You already got it set to filter. Uh, you turn on the engage. And so, like, you may put where you want it to start at. I'd say start at maybe 2.1. We need to make a pattern for it. We'll name the pattern verse 1. We'll make sure this pattern is 16 bars to match the verse. And same thing, I'm gonna restart it and watch this, just gonna mess with it. Just like that, we've dropped in our tape effects, we've dropped in a filter. And the cool thing I like about it, like when I think about using something like this where it's a digital plugin in Maschine and it's emulating something someone would do like on a 404 or other different pieces of gear, is we can come in here and tweak how we programmed it if we wanted it to be real specific, or say we got it almost just right but it was a little too heavy, but we want to dial it back a notch. Well, that's something you have the option to do because all the notes you programmed are right here in here digitally. So you can do that. You know, you can't, if you were using a hardware version and what you played is what you get, you have to re-record it. Re-recording something is not the end of the world, but in this case, we don't have to. And I like that. Like right here, when I went to this bandpass filter, I definitely did not intend to. So it was kind of cool, but I could just drop it there and never go to it. I like that. But the bandpass, what, like I said, it was cool. So maybe I leave it like it is, or maybe I, boom, do that for a section and bring it out of it right there. Uh-oh. But yeah, that's programming the effects. That's how you set it up to route it. In this something working like this, let's say I decided that I took it and I decided I wanted to say, hey, let's take this and track it out, and that way I can mix it in, you know, Reaper, Pro Tools, Logic, whatever you're using. In order for it to make sure it does these effects, you would have to solo each channel and export them. Like normally when you work in Maschine, when you want to export something, you can just export everything as an individual sound. But because the way this is set up, you know, it's, you know, you got everything that's running through the tremolo, the filter, the stutter, and the scratcher. You would need to solo each sound individually and export and then go from there. So that's really the only difference, and it still does it faster than real time. So you'd be able to fly through, export it. How many sounds we used? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 drums we used, and 3 samples, that's 9 sounds. You'd fly through that. It'd be pretty fast, so it's pretty dope. So there's that. You know, we got our tremolo, we got a filter. Let's throw a stutter effect on there. I do the same thing when I'm working on these effects. I don't record the automation right away. I try to figure out what settings work great. So I'm going to hit play, we're going to listen to it, and we're going to figure out something that sounds right. Alright, I messed that up because I forgot to make it 16 bars. So let's make a pattern for it. Fumbles happen, we keep it moving. Call it verse. Oops. There we go. Verse 1. 16 bars. And then let's do it again. Let's let's do our stutter effect. Good news is I found a setting I like, so let's get it. So you get the idea that, I don't know, that was probably not my best work with the stutter effect, but you get the idea there. So now you've got your, you've got your tremolo done, your filter, and you could keep going, and you could keep adding effects. Those are just 3, maybe 4 of my favorite effects to do to a beat when I'm working on like something that I feel is intended to be like a beat tape release type deal. But yeah, we've got the session a little more organized. We've trimmed this down to just 2 groups, one group for drums, the other for verses. Just because I've worked a little bit on this beat before, I know this sound never gets used. And so technically we could delete it because, like I said, I try to set things up for the next guy to work on. So if I come in, the next guy comes in and he's trying to figure out why is this sound here, where's that's gonna come up, it never comes up. So no reason, we don't need it. And boom, that's that. And that's kind of how I work in Maschine. Like here, so let's go here. We got verse 2 drums that's only in it's only going basically from the 5th bar to the 13th. Like it's not in the first 4 bars, it's not in the last 4. It looks very similar to verse 1 because verse 1 drums play the whole time, right? So I'm just gonna copy verse 1's drums. I'm gonna copy that pattern. I'm gonna name it verse 2 drums. And the first 4 bars don't have drums, so I'm gonna delete those. And the last 4 don't have it, so I'm gonna delete those. And boom, there's our drums for verse 2. Scene 9, rename this to verse 2. I'm pretty sure, yep. And then we need our sample, right? So we go here. What did verse 1 have sample was? And I believe verse 2 is just the opposite, where it ends on the bass sample and it starts out with no bass sample. So same thing, we're gonna go here. We're gonna copy verse 1. We're gonna name it verse 2 sample. And so instead of deleting it, we're just gonna shift it over, right? Because it starts out with just a high pass, which let me do that now. Put that HPF in there. HPF for high pass filter. I didn't do that. I didn't want to delete HPF. And we're just gonna slide this over to 5. Boom. Then for the last 4 bars, we're just going to delete the high pass. And we now have, I need to be over here. We now have our verse 2. Let me change this back to verse 1. So we've cleaned that up. We've cleaned up big time over here. We can just delete these. We already know how to make an intro. We've been making beats for a long time, guys. So watch this. When you have this cleaned up like this, when you have it set up, watch this. I'll go here to this plus sign, select, and pick hook. And it does it for me because it was already set up. So we have an intro, 8-bar intro, 16-bar verse, 8-bar hook, 16-bar verse. We can delete that. We don't need you no more. We can just delete this all together, truthfully. That was there for an example, but we don't need it. Delete those. Look at this, guys. We have cleaned up our session. If you're watching this on the playback or whatever, you can go back and look. 1 scene for the intro, 1 scene for the verse, 3 scenes. We're at 4 scenes because this is the same scene because the hook is the same. Now we have to do is make an outro. That's what we want. Let's just play the beat to listen to it and enjoy it for just a second. But that's what we want. We want our workflow to be real clean. So yeah, that's just I was just tinkering around with that, but I hope this might help a little bit. Like I said, it's a very organized way to work. It really makes it easy to flow. When you send this over to the next guy, you know, whoever it might be, or when you come back and look at it a month from now, you don't have as much to look through. You know, you intro, verse, hook, boom. Everything about it is very self-explanatory. You don't have to guess or nothing. A lot of times my intros stuff is similar. The outro is similar to the intro basically. So on this scene here, where's the says hook sample. I'm just gonna duplicate that. And we'll figure it out exactly how, but that becomes that's the outro. Don't know what I'd do with the drums, but you just know it's there. Outro sample. Ooh, it'd be good if I could spell today. Outro, or whatever that might be. And I think that's cool. Before it's all said and done, that intro might, you know, be cut down so that it's not as long. That way we can get right into the meat and potatoes of the song. But that's really it. That's how I work. I think it's a cool way to work. It's a very efficient way to work. Keeps everything slimmed down, which that's kind of my goal. Do You Bang Beats worked on this song as far as vocal performance goes, and he's a dope producer. So I could potentially, with something so cleaned up like this, I could send it over to him, you know, to work on, or like this is LenFlow's beat, he's worked on it. So if he wanted to send it to me to add something to it, when it looks like this, it's like, oh wow, this is easy. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, all right, cool. I'll just make another group. Like if that were the case, I'd make another group. Maybe do something like, I don't know, rhythm, RTHM for rhythm, like, and you know, add some instruments to it and be done with it. That's not how you spell rhythm. I don't type full words when I'm naming things because I like to keep the name short. So I would put SMPL to represent sample. I probably do DRM for drums, so RHTM for rhythm, and that would be where I would, you know, come over here and add different instruments, you know, whatever it might be. But I, you know, use my different instruments I have and add to the sample, you know, to the beat, you know, some keys, maybe horns. I don't know. It depends on what we're doing. But that's kind of how I like to work in Maschine. You know, it's simple, powerful workflow. And just like that, we've got something trimmed down from a bunch of random scenes to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 scenes. We're done. We're out of here. Just like that. So I really hope that this was helpful in some type of way for anyone checking it out. Lynn, I'm sure we'll talk more on the phone in detail. Of course, save what you've done up to this point. Um, Intro, verse, hook, verse two. Didn't mean to do that. That's why. Intro, verse one, hook, verse two, hook, outro. Boom. Dope. I color code a lot of things. I kind of got my own system. You obviously don't have to have my system. It's just how I like to work because it's what I'm used to. Um, I recommend it for anybody. Basically, my verses are always blue, hooks are always purple. I don't even have a reason. Intros are yellow, outros are orange, drums are red, sample is green. And I usually, on my personal beats, the rhythm section and sample are all in one group. But that was just based on the idea that if I was getting it from Lynn and then to continue working on it, I would drop the instruments I add to a different group. I don't know, make them yellow, I guess, whatever. But that's just the idea with that. I try to color code everything and work the same way every time. One, it helps me stay on top of, because I like to be creative, but I also like to flow, so that way when I come back to something, I can look at it and I can see it. I'm like, oh, this is where I left off. Boom. Oh, this is where I left off. Boom. Okay, this is what I was doing last. Boom. So those are things I like to do. And with it this way, I really think anybody can pick up this session and say, all right, cool, I'm going to add whatever. Or, like in this case, let's say, it was sent over to Dub, to do what he needs to do. Hook sample, and it's also the intro. That doesn't bother me, but whatever. Um, Say Dub did 16s. With something like this, because I know Dub is a Maschine user and he knows I can send it to him and he could come. I mean, I said 16s. Let's say he had did 12s. He can come in here and pull that back. And if he says, hey, based on what I wrote, I want the first 4 bars not to have drums, he can come in here, open Maschine, and delete the drums with ease because he knows how to use Maschine. But if I've got like where we started, like I'm gonna go back to where we started mainly for the sake of just to take a mental note of what this looks like. Let's go back to where we started. Open recent hour. Don't save it. So that's kind of the reason why I work that way. I hope that helps somebody. I'm gonna wrap this thing up for the day. because I could just keep expounding on it, but I'd be repeating myself. I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you for tuning in. My name's DJ brimLo. You can find me, you see the links down below. BeatStars, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. Hit me up. If you watch the video, find it helpful, please hit the comments. You can hit me up on Twitter. I'm probably finna holler at Lynn right now. But guys, thanks for tuning in. I'll try to keep this type of content coming, just things I feel like can help improve other producers' workflows and so on and so forth. But thank you guys for hanging out with me. It's your boy DJ brimLo. Be easy. I'm out.